Hey everyone, how are you? Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Matt Belloni. I am a founding partner of Puck, and I am the host of The Town. This is our, thank you. We've done a couple live event things. We did something at the Screen Time Conference. We did something at Sundance, but this is our first official Ringer-sponsored event that we've done for fans, and I am very happy that you all showed up tonight, so thanks for coming. We have a very special guest that we're going to bring out in a few minutes. But first, before we do that, I'm going to bring out my normal Monday guest. He is the managing editor of the Bloomberg Entertainment team. Please welcome Lucas Shaw. And a special round of applause for his Hawaiian shirt. I now feel 25 years older than he is.
So I have to say a couple things. First of all, don't drop that. Thank you for the thank you for the Screen Time shout out.
Yes.
I know that this is your first live show because you forgot to thank your sponsor.
Oh, I did. You're right. Please, yes. Thank you to DreamWorks The Wild Robot. If you have not seen that. And I hope we do not say anything too negative about the parent company Universal Pictures or any of its affiliates.
We're just a mess up here.
Yeah. That's your phone, though.
I know. I don't
okay.
It, though.
All right. So we are going to chat for about 15 minutes, and then we'll bring out our special guest. But I thought tonight, for fun and to update our previous rankings, a year ago we did something called the Studio Rankings, where we went through a list and gauged which studios and streamers are the preferred homes for projects, for movie projects. And we created different tiers, which was a little bit unnecessarily complicated.
I blended streamers and studios. You didn't. We were a little all over
exactly.
the place.
Tonight I want to revisit that and do the 2024 studio rankings. And to do that, I want to go through first what we did in the previous one. And like I said, these are rankings based on our own reporting and the reputations of the different outlets.
And we're talking about movie studios so that we don't welcome our special guest and talk about,
our special guest works in television. So he does not have to worry about any of our rankings. So last year when we did this, with the streamers, we ranked them the following. 1 was Apple, 2 was Netflix, 3 was Amazon Prime Video. And these are streamers that are the preferred homes for projects that are in demand. And on the studio side, we ranked number 1, Universal, number 2, Sony Pictures, number 3, Disney, number 4, Warner Brothers, and number 5, Paramount. So I want to combine those two and do one ranking 1 through 8 of the preferred home for movie projects. And I'm going to give you the number 1 pick.
Oh, we're going to alternate. Okay.
Yes.
I'm keeping it the same as last year. I think Universal is still first. Disney had will have the highest grosses of any studio this year. But Universal still has sort of the Donna Langley factor. They didn't have a down year. If you go back to the beginning of this year, Oppenheimer won everything at the Oscars. They secured the next Christopher Nolan movie, which should tell you a lot about how talent views them because he's one of the most difficult filmmakers to work with. They had big hits throughout the summer, and I just think they've done nothing to lose their position, so I leave them first.
I would agree with that. I think the fact that they are building what I think is the modern movie studio strategy around the franchises that they have, which it's kind of hard to believe, but they actually don't have that much IP.
And the IP that they do have, that would be the knock on them, is getting old.
It's very old, but they're managing to squeeze another Jurassic World out of that, and that thing was turned around fast. They looked at their calendar and they're like, oh shit, what are we doing? July 4th, 26 or 25. That's coming out next summer. And they are turning that around very fast. They probably got a little bit left in Fast and Furious. There will ultimately be a TV show at some point. But I think the main thing is the filmmaker lineup. If you look at the filmmakers they have Spielberg, they have Jordan Peele, they have Nolan, they have the Daniels, all currently making movies for them.
They have the biggest range. They can do art house, they can do Oscars, they can do animation, they do everything, and they do most of those things well. And there's no other studio that we'll talk about that can do that.
And if you look at their marketing and the way they handle the movie, I don't think you could look at anything other than Oppenheimer and say, okay, this is the standard for how you release a movie. This is I mean, I don't know if it was coincidence. I think they're pretty skilled. Michael Moses is very good at his job. Chris Nolan's publicist likes to say that it was all her that got him the Oscar. It was
you
not
just had
her.
to find a Kelly Bush dig
yes,
to take.
It was not her. It was Universal that got him that Oscar, and you can't beat that. So
Okay.
that's number
Who do
one.
you
We
got
agree
second?
on one.
Who do you have second?
Second, I'm going to say Warner Brothers.
Oh, wow.
Which is a huge jump from last year, only because they're spending and they actually offer theatrical. They just got the Wuthering Heights movie that Margot Robbie is going to do. They're taking about $80 million in a package for that movie. Netflix offered $150, and they went with Warner's because Margot Robbie and Emerald Fennell wanted theaters. She had a great experience with Barbie. She has a deal there, and this will likely all implode at some point, and we will be talking about them in 2 years as, oh my God, I can't believe they made a $140 million Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Yeah. But for right now, if you are a filmmaker and your agent is giving you a poo-poo platter of options, I think you're looking at Warner's.
I understand it because when you look at who has bought what, they have very effectively bought things. The problem I run into with them is that their performance is dog shit.
Not dog shit. Beginning of first quarter, do I remind you, first quarter, we said they won the quarter.
No, they did. And
because of their releases of the legendary movies.
I picked a bunch of their movies in our movie draft.
Yes.
And
he has Joker 2, by the way,
yes,
just to remind everyone.
Dune, great. Godzilla, great. But yeah, you cannot blame fully the current leadership. But however you want to think about it, Joker 2 is the biggest bomb of the year by far. They had an abysmal summer. Beetlejuice did fine. It's a hit, but it's not the home run that they wanted it to be. And just the performance of the studio, especially, the international performance they're getting in their films is just not there.
They have had some international misses on movies that were hits in the U.S.
Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi, very good at charming filmmakers, clearly have the agents love to sell them stuff because they'll pay them whatever. But they did this at Amazon where they bought a bunch of movies, they sounded great, and then none of them performed. So right now, I had them a little bit lower, and mine's still high up because you're right, they're winning the packages, but the performance is not there, and I cannot wait to get a call from someone about this.
But if you are Joe Blow agent trying to take out a client's project, I think you look at them. I mean, I don't know if I said this on the show, but like Brian Lord is giving quotes to the Wall Street Journal about how great the Warner's people are. And if he's doing that, it's because they're overspending on his clients.
Yes, I have heard there's a lot of discussion about whatever the Mike DeLuca, Brian Lord mind meld is. Yes.
They have some kind of blood oath that they support each other in life and death and beyond.
Okay, well, you make it easy for me because my number 2 can be who I would put third, which I think next is Disney. I get that. Look, from a filmmaker taking a package out, there's not a lot that Disney buys. But it's the most powerful movie studio in town still. And along with Universal has been the best performer consistently over the last few years. And I think the hiring of David Greenbaum to oversee sort of the Disney more general entertainment movies, who has really good filmmaker relationships, is well liked in town. They won't buy as much, but between Searchlight and some of the other movies they make, I just think that they're the second best run movie studio.
Sure, as maybe fiscally, but creatively, I mean, if I am a filmmaker and I'm looking for a home for my movie, if it's not Disney IP or pre-branded, I'm basically going to Searchlight. And Searchlight is fine. They do those movies, but the Searchlight track record is not like home runs all the time, especially this year.
Yeah, but
you did not sit through Night Bitch at Toronto. I did.
Yeah, I haven't watched that one yet, but if we're talking quality, it's a different. I mean,
it's not necessarily quality. It's the right home for the project. And I guess Searchlight. I guess what you're saying is Searchlight is still the premier place for a.
Well, I also think
release.
You're going to have filmmakers who want to make the big type of Disney movie. Yeah.
Okay. All right. My number 3. We're going to go to number 3. I'm actually going.
We're at number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I had okay, so I had Disney as my number 4.
Okay, so
But we don't have
that
to
means you had
discuss.
Sony above Disney?
No, I had Amazon.
Yeah, okay.
Above.
I had Amazon next too, so we're back in.
All right, so my Amazon's my number 3, your number 4. And I just feel like of the streamers, it's the preferred choice right now.
I flirted between I was actually going to have Amazon number 3, but I felt weird about it because they just lost Wuthering Heights to Warner Bros. Anyways, I agree.
I mean, we're talking about a costume drama here.
Yeah,
there's
been a complete inversion. We had Apple as the number 1 streamer before, and for my money, they've completely switched places. Amazon is now easily the number 1 streamer.
I have Apple second to last now, only because it's unclear whether they're even in the movie business.
I do too, but you're cutting ahead.
All right, so okay. We're probably long as well, but I'm just going to say Amazon now has the hybrid. They have the hybrid that people want. They will give you theaters and a significant theater release. I mean, look what they're doing with the Abomination Red One. Like, they're giving that a real theatrical release with tens of millions of dollars. I shouldn't say Abomination. I have not seen the movie, but the marketing makes it look silly and bad. But they're paying The Rock, $50-60 million. And they are, they're giving that a real theatrical release, and you get the power of the streaming afterlife.
Yeah, number 2 or 3 streaming service, depending. Yes. Okay,
then I had Disney 4, but you go to your 5.
No, we're at 5. Now I have to. Then I had Sony, I think.
Oh, you do. You have Sony above Netflix. Because I had them swapped. I have Netflix 5 and Sony 6.
I could go either way on it, to be honest.
I mean, Netflix still...
Netflix has the audience, and so I think... And Netflix has the dollars, and so I think for certain projects, they will win. But there are a lot of filmmakers who aren't going to want to put their movies there. That's sort of the trade-off.
Yeah, but that list of filmmakers is small. It's, usually the dump truck of money solves those problems. And for certain filmmakers who already have that money, it's not going to solve it, but I feel like, Sony, they're still doing what they do, and they're going to have Venom this weekend, which will probably underperform the last one, but it's a movie, and they're doing a real release of it,
right?
I feel like Sony was in on this Wuthering Heights, but they're just not going to do that. Tom Rothman is not going to get into bidding wars. He's not going to overpay. Unless it's Quentin Tarantino, he's just not going to do that.
Probably a smart decision on Wuthering Heights.
Probably, yeah. Because, if you look at the economics, even at an $80-something million budget for theatrical on a prestige costume drama, assume it's the best version of Wuthering Heights.
Right.
And
the best version of it is it's Little Women, and it becomes a huge...
What?
It was
did what, 300?
Something like that.
Yeah. So, okay. They can then great.
Yeah.
And Little Women didn't have Margot Robbie, didn't have the buzz off of the filmmaker of Saltburn, although Saltburn was a hit on streaming but not in theaters.
Yeah. Okay. You talked me into Netflix above Sony.
I just feel like Netflix has the money and the audience, and I hate to be Ted Sarandos' publicist, but they bring the biggest audience in the world to these movies, and they may not remember it the next morning, and they may not be able to tell you a single movie that they've watched on Netflix ever. But
no, Rebel Ridge, great movie.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
did you watch it?
I have not watched it, so I cannot say. And we're not critics.
I just got a call from my mom earlier this week talking about how great
she
it
liked
was.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, good for her.
Okay, just for consciousness.
But you and I, be honest, had you heard of Damsel before we discussed it on the show? That is the number 1 movie of the first half of the year.
I'd heard of it.
You had heard of it.
But I hadn't watched it.
And if the algorithm doesn't serve it to you, which I assume it didn't, there's no way you would even know about it. So Netflix may have the most viewed movies in the world, but for people who are not algorithmically served the movie, they are completely invisible. And part of the cultural value of these movies is people who don't see them know about them. And that's what you get from the theater.
Yes, well, then we should revisit the Amazon ranking because they have yet to have a movie that was culturally viable either. But that's a...
Yeah, I mean, we could argue some of them, but okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Now are the dregs here.
Yeah, we're at Apple and Paramount.
Apple and Paramount. Yeah. So did you have Apple last or Paramount?
I had Paramount last just because of the uncertainty. I think when Ellison's in charge and there's a clear strategy, Paramount may leapfrog Apple. But Apple... And Apple obviously has uncertainty too, but they still have a lot of money. So
And they were apparently in on Wuthering Heights at one point. So maybe they're not out of the movie business. And if F1 is a giant hit next summer, maybe they will be back.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. So the final rankings my rankings are Universal, Warner Brothers, Amazon, Disney, Netflix, Sony, Apple, and Paramount. And yours are?
Universal.
This is not a quiz.
Well, no, but I thought we sort of did it collectively. So
okay. All right. We'll just accept mine as the real ones.
Yeah, we'll just accept yours.
All right. There we go. How are we on time, Craig? We are okay. We need to move on. By the way, I did not thank our producer, Craig Horlbeck. He's the brains. Also, Jessie Lopez, who is a producer as well and edits the show. He's back there as well. For our very special guest tonight, this is a guy that I've wanted to have on the town for a long time. Initially, his publicist thought it was not a, quote, safe space. But we're very happy that he has changed his mind. This guy has amazingly had the same job, pretty much the same job from almost 20 years. He is one of the smartest people in the television world. He is riding high because at the Emmys this past September, he set records for both the most wins for a drama and the most wins for a comedy. We're talking about Shogun. We're talking about The Bear. And we are talking about the mayor of television.
No. The alderman now. He's not the mayor.
He's the alderman of television. He's been promoted. Is that a promotion? No.
They said he got impeached or recalled or something.
Right. Yeah. So we are talking about the higher power of television, the CEO of FX Networks, John Landgraf.
Okay.
We won't ask you your movie studio rankings.
Yeah, that was tough.
All right, I will start, and I promise that I will try not to talk over Lucas. It's happened before. But so you famously coined the term peak TV, and you used to give updates every year on the state of peak TV. You sort of do it now, but not as a declaration. It used to be like you would go to the top of Mount Olympus and declare how many shows there were each year.
The Langham, the top of Mount Olympus. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So if we are clearly out of the peak TV era, what era of TV are we in? Because it's not like it was pre-TV, pre-peak TV, but it's certainly not peak TV.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that. Someone suggested peaked TV or peaked is another way of pronouncing that name. But no, what I would say is, look, what I can describe as the dynamics that I foresaw, which is, if you go back to 2002 and there were 180 shows, and one of the reasons we don't put that list out anymore is because how do you count? Because there's so many shows that are made globally now that are relevant in the United States. We were just counting adult English language, U.S. released television shows. And I don't even know if that's a valid category anymore, but it was 180 in 2002. It was about 300, a little under 300 in 2012, and it was 600 in 2022. And the dynamic that was driving that was initially the sort of overproduction into the cable, the subscription system. The subscription system was driving up cost, as we all know, way past inflation, and every channel was trying to get as much subscription revenue as it could. And so you had broadcast holding on for dear life, and you had premium trying to drive incremental subscription, and then you had basic. And that's what drove it to about 300. And then in came Netflix, right? Initially, I don't know, you guys remember, Netflix says, well, we're not in the original programming business. We just want to be a syndication service. We're not competitive with you guys. And then boom, right? Billions of dollars flooded in. And then very quickly thereafter, as you've written about a lot, everybody chased them into the streaming business because what the street basically said, Wall Street said, is we believe this is the future of the business and we believe you guys are the past, and we're not going to support from a capital standpoint anybody who's not in the streaming business. So I think the reason I got peak TV wrong is I saw the dynamic of basic premium broadcast, then Netflix. What I didn't foresee was Apple, Amazon, and then every media company basically chasing after streaming and augmenting and adding that to their basic cable. So it was just obvious that was unsustainable. This year, we're probably going to be at around 500. And that, unfortunately, I wish it weren't too many shows, but it's just too many shows. We do this professionally. We can't keep track of all the television shows that are being made. So
we joke about when there's a cancellation of a show that we've never heard of.
Right.
Usually on Peacock or Paramount Plus.
So that's just not an efficient use of time and money to do it that way. But the flip side of it is until the dynamic has restructured itself, and as long as you have companies like Apple at $3.5 trillion in market cap and, others that are in it for other reasons, Amazon's $2 trillion in market cap. So it's not going to reveal itself in terms of a capitally efficient marketplace. Even if I look at Paramount, okay, is Paramount the new entity created out by the debt cram down and basically the synergy, meaning cost cutting and the sort of cost and cash that's going to be generated? Or is it a new entity that's owned by somebody worth $200 billion? I don't think we have any idea, but if it's a new entity owned by somebody worth $200 billion, it can spend whatever it wants to chase after the streaming future. And they just made a consulting deal with Cindy Holland today, and she's damn good. So if you give her resources and you give her money, she's got good taste. And all of a sudden, something that would not be a major competitor, isn't really a major competitor today, could be one tomorrow. So I can't see where that goes, honestly, Matt, because it could all be over in 2 years, and it could be 10 years, and we're still duking it out, right? With too many entrants making too many television shows to really sustain.
You're someone who cares a lot about the art and the quality. What impact do you think that sort of profusion of shows has had on the caliber of television being produced?
Look, I hate to say anything that undercuts people's need to work and jobs, because I'm really conscious of the fact that this business sucks right now for almost everybody, and really, really sucks for writers and directors and crews and actors in Los Angeles. And so I don't want to pile on to that, but I would say it's just really, really hard to make a good television show. It takes an enormous amount of time and energy and courage and devotion, and the whole industry ramped up beyond the capacity to devote that amount of time. And also, famously, streaming companies want it now, right? Because they're trying to hit this very, very rapid cadence. And I guess, what I would say, Lucas, is, okay, quality is in the eye of the beholder on some level, because quality is what people love and they want to watch. You can say it's based on ratings, but let's be honest. If we're going to go back and make a list of the greatest movies ever made, is it going to be the top list of box office, or is there going to be some other factor going on there, right? And that other factor is ambition, creative ambition, and aiming for quality. And that just takes time. It's really hard. And I haven't felt that the industry in the peak TV era was particularly focused on that. So you get something like, you get Richard Gadd to make, Baby Reindeer outside the system. It'll come in. It'll be great. We're trying to stealthily put those things together. But what the dominant output of those hundreds and hundreds of television shows is just more about speed and more about the algorithm, I think, than taking the time. I'm not denigrating anybody's talents involved in them. I'm saying it just takes time. You have to be patient, and that's hard when you're fighting for your life.
And do you think if the volume of television comes down in the next couple of years, that the quality will improve?
Probably, all things being equal. There's a finite amount of talent to go around. But if you ask me, have we done a tremendous disservice to our industry by undermining our crew base in Los Angeles and undermining the training system that we had in place for writers? And could that really have a negative impact on quality? Yeah, it really could. So I don't know. Yeah.
I'm just curious to that end. Who do you blame, or what is the root cause of so much production not happening here anymore?
Well, as you'll hear, I don't tend to single out, individuals. I try to look at system dynamics or ecosystem dynamics. And what I would say is that you can't have something multiply from 180 to 600 television shows and then break the system by which there was a way of measuring profitability for television shows, which is bluntly, that's what cost plus is. You can say who put the cost plus model in place. I won't do that, but that's what it does.
That's the Netflix model. They pay you the fee it costs to make it plus a premium.
Right. So now we have no way of measuring other than the super secret sauce of data and statistics that are held by these platforms. And we don't have any way of allocating capital and talent to eyeballs and usage and multiple markets. We can't sell to multiple markets because the markets are distorted. It's not as if like we had an ecosystem for, a long time where there were all these major studios, none of which were ever going to destroy any of the others. They were all going to be there forever. And so they could afford to sell to each other, right? They could afford to share and move things around. When you have entities like Apple and Amazon and frankly Netflix that could run away with it all, you can't just sell to them because they can afford to overpay for years, decades, right? So it breaks the market. And then meanwhile, you're going down from 22 to 18 to 15 to 13 to 10 to 8 shows. And I can tell you, like, you can't make a show like Shogun without writing all the scripts in advance. It's like a $200 million feature film. You don't go into production on a feature film with the first act written and guessing what acts 2 and 3 are going to be. And so then you break the relationship between the writing room and the production, which is just a key factor in how writers learn to be producers and directors and how they learn to run shows. So it was a dynamic in the transition from a linear channel-based model to an emergent streaming model. And it just destroyed. And I was really frustrated for a long time because what I heard is a lot of shit and a lot of shade from Silicon Valley. I mean, they crapped on Hollywood and its excesses I want to know what that group of people have put into the culture, okay? That is the parallel of what this town has made over 100 years. And so, but look, they're going to push for capital efficiency in their model. And that capital efficiency in their model breaks a lot of the traditional apprenticeship and the union structure and the production structure and a whole lot of things that were a part of what undergirded the quality of our industry. And so I don't think we're struggling for quality because we lack talent. I think we're struggling for quality because we lack the training system and the support system that allows the best talent to emerge and take the time and aim high, right? How do you aim high when it's like...
Sorry. I know we can save it to the end. Sorry.
I will say too, like I see algorithmic recommendations because I work for a streaming platform.
And you have data now.
I have tons of data.
That's what I was going to say. Like, how much is data informing your decisions now?
Data, it's always been the same. Data can tell you what's worked before. It doesn't tell you what's going to work in the future. It just will never, because what data was going to tell you that of the pent up and unseen demand for Star Wars, right? After Star Wars, you could say, oh, let's make more Star Wars. And then we will. We'll go make 1,000 space operas until they all suck and the thing is dead. But beforehand, isn't what we're looking for always is the thing the algorithm doesn't know because the consumer doesn't know. And that's what the artist's job is, to try to tune into these distant, very faint signals, right? That no one's ever heard before. That's like, well, what if we did this? What if we made a big space opera with light lasers and everybody passed on that. The reason Lucas ended up owning it is because nobody wanted it, right? Because it had never been done before. And the algorithm will never tell you, this is the thing you've never done before that you should do now, because that's not what it's measuring.
It could tell you 3 actors you've got, you're deciding who to cast in The Old Man, and you look at data that says on Hulu, Jeff Daniels, he is a star.
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges. Sorry, I get them mixed up. Jeff Bridges is a star on Hulu. We have the data that shows that he is the one we should cast.
Yeah. Okay. But what is, look, Jeff Bridges is one of our national treasures. He's an absolutely great actor, but what makes magic is the connection between an actor and a role, right? Jeff Bridges is not great in every role he ever played. He's excellent as an actor, but there are iconic roles that match actors. What is the algorithm going to tell you about that? That this, put Jeff Bridges in this part, and this is going to be one of his iconic roles, right? It can tell you, yes, Jeff Bridges is popular. That's a shit reason to make a decision about why to cast somebody in a part. It just is.
I'm curious. You made a comment earlier about how Amazon, Apple, Netflix sort of had the resources if they wanted to swallow everything, right? And there was a point several years ago where you sort of warned about the monopolistic tendencies of Silicon Valley companies and the possibility that Netflix could one day control everything. Do you still see that as a possibility? Or when you look at, the consistent output that you put out there, it seems hard to believe that they would be able to own all of it.
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, you have to ask them whether they've given up. I'm not sure they've given up on that dream, but I don't think they can do it. I don't think Disney's going anywhere. And as long as Amazon and Apple want to be in this business, they will. And they're serious about it. Certainly Amazon's really serious about it, as you guys said.
Do you think, how serious do you think Apple is?
I have no idea. I mean, I know all the guys over there, the people over there, they've made some good things. They have a lot of money, and they've been committed to it for a long time. But I don't know. I don't understand their business model. That's part of what's problem with predicting the future is you can start to predict the future if you have an understanding of the relationship between this money goes in and that value comes out. What you tell me, Matt, what's the relationship between this money goes in and that money goes out in Apple's strategy?
They want to sell all content, just like they sell all music. I think Apple would like to be the interface through which you get everything that you consume. Amazon's the same way. They're a store. They're the modern equivalent of a department store. And why shouldn't they sell video services from everybody? And that's why I thought it was so significant that Apple is now conceding that they need the Amazon channel store to sell their service, because I think Apple got into the content business thinking, okay, if we are going to be serious about selling things on it, having the metaverse or whatever the future of selling stuff digitally is going to be, then we should be in this business.
Yeah. Well, look, you said something I want to follow up on, but just to stay on the topic we're on now, like, okay, but $1 billion is $1 billion, right? To me anyway, it's still an awful lot of money. And I'm asking you, how do you measure, if you're Apple, whether I put in 3 billion, 4 billion, or 5 billion? What technique do I use to do that?
I have no idea.
Okay, since you don't have, now maybe they know something that we don't know, but what I would say, if you have an industry that's beset by that question, you could end up easily with billions or tens of billions of dollars of money spent more than is actually efficient in the system. Because how do you measure that efficiency, right? Now, the one thing I will say that I think you were right about is that I as much as a seller, and I was a seller, I was a producer for a long time, so I want a healthy market for sellers. And, you could say, well, it would be absolutely great if you had 10 companies, all of which were trying to be all of television, right? They all wanted a streaming service, but that will never work because consumers, as we know, enough consumers will not buy 4, 5, 6, 7 subscriptions for that to work. So we give up on that dream and we say probably where we end up is where we were when we had 4 broadcast networks, right? We probably end up with somewhere between 3 and 5. How do we get there from here? I have no idea. And could it be more because you have these companies like Amazon and Apple that are really not fundamentally in the storytelling business? They're in the e-retail or the device or the subscription business. Yeah. So how does anybody predict the future of it? And I think that's part of what frustrates me about the economy generated by the internet is that, you have a natural progression towards monopoly. You have a natural progression towards network effects and platform effects. And it's great for volume and it's great for price, but it's not great for the autonomy and freedom of individual human beings and for artists. These are very, very, very large, powerful entities. I work for a powerful entity. I'm not suggesting it's not, but, compared to Apple or Amazon and their ambition to literally own all of e-commerce, we're talking about something very different than these Hollywood studios. For all of their flaws, they just weren't that powerful relative to these companies.
Yeah, it's interesting though. You ever think about where FX would be today if Disney had not bought it?
Dead.
It would be AMC.
It would be dead.
It would be struggling.
And I knew it would be dead. Honestly, the last time we had it was such a strange, surreal experience because the last time we had a really amazing year at the Emmys was 2016. We won 18. We were riding high. I think I think HBO got 22 that year. We got 18. And I don't run a business with a P&L now. So that's a big change that's happened since the industry changed and Disney changed. I'm a cost center, I guess I would say. But I did run a business and we were all riding high, and I was sitting there saying, oh, we're dead. We're gone. Like,
why?
Because you could see the inflection points in the future of the MVPD system, and you could see that there was no way to get out of it. Like you could do what AMC tried to do, which is start your own small scale streaming business. And I looked at every strategy I could possibly imagine. And the answer to all of it was, yeah, we're going to cut till our spending is at zero and our profits is zero, and we're done. And we exist today because Disney bought us, right? And because we're now part of a streaming ecosystem and we have a different job to do. We still have these channels, but we have a different job to do. And that's allowed us to not only spend money, continue to spend money, spend more money, make shows like Shogun that we would never have made as a basic cable network. So, I hope we got lucky the old fashioned way of working hard and being prepared. But some of it was luck and Bob Iger, to be honest with you, because without that, we'd be gone.
Do you see, you go back to that time you're talking about, and it felt like HBO was sort of always the network that you compared yourself to. They've obviously had a very rocky last several years. Are you worried at all about what happens to that network?
I wouldn't count them out. What I would say is that part of what underlies all of this is really process. You could say, okay, I've been here 20 years. It's my taste. Okay. I don't think so. I think there's something in that, but I listen to a lot of the people around me. I think there have been a lot of people with really good taste there, Casey and Carolyn and Chris and all that. I think it's about a process. And I think that process is about a willingness to take the time and invest and really, really work hard from the ground up on ideas, concepts, characters, scripts. Take the time it takes to get something right. Then figure out how to get it right in production, how to cast it right, how to make it in the right place, how to put the right resources behind it, how to market it, right? That process doesn't really exist. It exists at HBO still, right? I mean, they're under a lot of duress, as is their parent company, I'm sure. And they've been buffeted by the whole max of it all and the all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't count them out because I don't think in all that they've thrown their process under the bus. I think that process is still there. And I think that process still allows artists to do the best work possible. That's how we get where we get, is process.
You just going off of what you said about how you wouldn't be around if not for Disney. So that leads to the question of what is the FX brand and platform now? Because you talk to people who say, well, why does FX exist? If the brand is Hulu and the brand is Disney Plus around the world, why does Disney cling to this linear brand in streaming? It means something to people like us and to people that love quality TV, but why not just transition it into Hulu and have Hulu and Disney Plus be the brand like Netflix is the brand or like they're trying to do with Max?
Well, that's a $64,000 question, and it's
or do you think it will exist forever?
Well, I have a point of view about this, and whether my point of view is right or will prevail, I don't know. My point of view is that brands are not when you end up with, and I think we peaked at something like 64 different channels making original programming. The brand's not worth anything in that, right? It's just like walking in. I mean, what do you do if you walk into a grocery store and there's 64 brands of jam, right?
I think there's 64 brands of Oreos now. You can get like Lady Gaga flavor.
All right. So, but ultimately, if there are a limited number of brands, right? If you get down to the point where there's Apple and HBO and FX, right, that signify a certain kind of ambition or a certain kind of quality, then brand starts to become relevant again. So what I've been trying to do is survive through that culling, that brutal culling and transition to get to the other side. Now, if I look at it from the Disney standpoint, they need everything bagels. They need a family-oriented service that's best in class, that has as much in it as they can possibly put. Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, Disney Animation, Disney Live Action, Disney Branded Television, National Geographic. And they need a general entertainment brand, I think, because I think that as much as Disney can be a general entertainment brand, and it is in Europe, I think it's still in America a very family-oriented brand. And I think it's very helpful to put the Bear and Shogun and Pam and Tommy and under a general entertainment brand. So then why not just have those two? And I guess the answer I would say is that because I think the way you get to efficiency, and I'm not talking about creative and capital efficiency, is by giving human beings and a group of people accountability and the power to make some things and make decisions, right? That's how film studios have always done it. You guys will do the ranking, but who has green light authority at Warner Brothers and who has green light authority at Universal. And if they get it right, they move up the ranking. And if they get it wrong, they're out. Tell me at a giant unitary brand streaming service with one brand, who gets the credit or the blame for the ascension or descension of that brand?
Usually just the person at the top.
Okay, so no one has the power then to do much.
Well,
other than the person at the top. But how much can the person at the top read?
We're talking about Netflix.
Yeah,
it's okay.
At Netflix, they would say that the decision-making power is actually fairly decentralized, that there are people well below Ted or Bella who can choose to buy something.
And
they might not get...
And how about choose to spend $200 million on a Japanese epic set in 1600 and then set the marketing budget for it at $45 million and then make all the marketing for it? Who has the power? Who in all of television has the power to do that, right? And I'm not saying that to thump my chest. I'm saying if you want to get efficiency, give people that and then hold them accountable. Because what will happen is the people that are adept at it will succeed and the people who aren't won't, and you'll keep rinsing and repeating. But I mean, posh to decentralized power. You have marketing in one single unitary structure. Nobody at any of these companies has any power over marketing. So when somebody comes in to pitch to me, right? And I say, and they say, well, how are you going to market this show? I say, well, I don't know. I have nothing to do with marketing. I don't even know if they will market it, let alone how they'll market it. And whatever image they choose to know, I'll find out the same time you do. Are you kidding? I grind hours, weeks, months on the marketing image. And you know what? If you love it, give the credit to our marketing group that's won Marketing Team of the Year 14 years in a row. And if you hate it, blame me. Because I guarantee you, I've seen every single image multiple times. Okay. So that is not a process that you can't make 300 television shows and do that process, because the people at the top of that cannot possibly read, listen, watch, look at the marketing. They can't talk to the creatives. You have to delegate that, right? And so what you have, which is not how Hollywood used to work, is you have the business power, the decision-making power, the power about money and strategy disconnected from the creative authority, right? That is what Silicon Valley has brought as a model into our business. And I don't agree with that. I think you have to connect the creative authority and the business authority, because they're one and the same. Business and creative are the same. You take care of business by making good creative products.
So we can assume that you were not in favor of the Disney reorg under Bob Chapek that took the power away from people like you and put it in the distribution group.
No.
How nervous were you before Shogun came out?
I mean, sweating bullets.
Really?
Yeah, not in the sense, like, I'm lucky. I'm not lucky to be old, but I'm lucky to be old in the sense that I'm not like, I'm really sympathetic to many people who don't have a nest egg, right, to be able to take these kinds of risks. And I do, because I've been 20 years in the same job. But I thought
you're not getting fired if that doesn't work.
That one, I'm not sure about that one.
Really?
Okay, because that was
Bob,
one.
Did Iger say to you, "Really, we're doing this"?
No, but no, because that's not how the company operates. And I got to say, they ultimately didn't say no, but nobody said, "Hey, we want you to go do this." What they said is, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." Really? You can't find bilingual actors. You have to actually cast this out of Japan, and you have to cast a primary cast that doesn't even speak a word of English. and you have to put more than half of it in Japanese. And I said, yeah, but I promise you, I'll get a really big star to play the Western male lead.
But then you didn't.
And then I'm like, this Cosmo Jarvis, he's really, really something you should, so.
That was the biggest surprise to me, that there was not a big star in that role.
It was a big surprise to me too, Matt. But it was a 10-month slog in Vancouver in the rain. And it was ultimately joyful to work with the North American crew, the Canadian crew, the American crew. And we brought in like all Japanese, like it was actually really a peak experience, except it was wet and cold and rainy. And we shot 230 days inclusive of second unit photography.
You think Disney would greenlight that today?
Yeah.
Does that make you more confident or want to do more programming in other languages? Or do you feel like that was sort of a one-off, it fit the show, but you're not looking to do more of that?
I feel like if I found a great epic, a truly great epic, like that really was, romance and sex and violence, but the fate of nations and ethics and morality and the meaning of life, I'd do it in any language. But how many of those great epics are out there, right? It's just that Shogun existed. We knew the book was really good, and we knew that the way U.S. television had made it before ignored all the Japanese characters because it was all in English. It was 5 hours. The first one, this was 10. So it was like, oh, here's this masterpiece of a book with all this material that's never been adapted for the screen. All we have to do to unlock that material is make a show in Japanese. Which, yeah, I was a little nervous about that.
Are you nervous about season 2? There's no book.
Yeah. Yeah, I was working on it with Justin Marks and Rachel Kondo and today, and I really am very confident in them. I'm confident in them and our team, Gina Balian and Kate Lambert and the people that work there. But it's hard. So,
different show. You made the decision to greenlight seasons 3 and 4 of The Bear together. And I believe they shot together. Am I correct?
Most of them. Yeah. Out of 20 episodes, they've shot about 16 and a half. So they're going to go back into production in February and finish.
First 2 seasons, out of the box hit. Second season, many people, including myself, say is one of the greatest seasons of television ever. Third season, less well received. Do you think that greenlighting of those 2 seasons together had an impact on The Bear and the way it came out?
No, because if you really want to go back, Nick Grad and I sat with Chris at lunch, and Josh Senior, his partner, and said, you're at the point now where if you want more than one season of pickup, we can do it. And it may help you because you have actors that are movie stars now. They're going to want to go do other things, and you can figure out when you're going to make the shows and when to release them. And they said, no, we can't work that way. We only want one season. So we picked up one, and then they got into making it. And they called us and said, yeah, we think we have 2 seasons here. Can you change the 1 season pickup into a 2 season pickup? But I think that the 3rd season of the show, which is the one you referenced as not as well received, is absolutely exactly the season of television that Chris Dora wanted to make. This is a very deeply personal show. That's part of why it's great. There's a lot of reasons it's great, but one of them is the relationship between the creator, the author, and the characters. And he's been stuck a lot at times in his life, and he wanted to make a season about stuckness. I've been doing this a long time. I was well aware that stuckness is not necessarily the most riveting dramaturgical. Right. But I also think as much as that there are so many things in that episode that are absolutely masterful, just absolute masterpieces. And I will say, knowing what I do know about the upcoming season, I think for those that have stayed with it, they're going to be really well rewarded, because after stuckness comes unstuckness. But that's the show he wanted to make. And what I would say about this whole conversation we're having about quality is you got to decide at the end of the day which side of this ledger you stand on. You can say, okay, I am going to bet on artists. And what you get in the benefit of that is you get quality and output beyond your wildest dreams, things that you couldn't in a million years imagine happening. And that's been happening since It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right? I mean, 17 years, right? So you get that, but you can't do that and then say, oh, but really the creative it's my decision. And you can't do that. And you can't do that. And I'm going to tell you to do that. It's one or the other. And if you do the former, you get all these extraordinary things that you couldn't have imagined. And then sometimes you got to back your creative with his, her, their vision. And that vision, you might feel in advance that vision is or is not where the audience wants to take the show. But that's, you pay your ticket and you take your ride. And for me, having done this 20 years, I think it's more than worth it. I just think it's better. I think part of our problem as an industry is we don't have a methodology right now for empowering creative people that way. And
what do you mean by that?
Christopher, well, when you had a relationship between an individual movie or show and a lot of money, right? A lot of money for the company that made it, the studio, a lot of money for the profit participants. You were really incentivized to take risks because there could be just untold pots of gold at the end of that rainbow. I can't tell you how much money the people who made It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia have made, right? But it also financed the creation and existence of FX Productions, which produced The Bear and Shogun. So they got a lot out of it. We got a lot out of it. Take away that incentive, right? And make everything a cost plus and there's no pot of gold anywhere. In fact, the only way you're even measuring the value of this thing is you have a giant portfolio of programming or content that $1 trillion company made. And then you're measuring somewhere in the bowels of that company whether that portfolio created a return on investment. Like, that doesn't incentivize the empowerment of creative people, because the truth of the matter is almost nothing can really move the needle, right? It's these buckets of content are so big that even a massive hit, right, doesn't really change the trajectory of Netflix or change the trajectory of, right? Now, what I would say is I'm answering the question of why FX, because The Bear and Shogun did change the trajectory of FX. Not only the creators, but the brand. And the brand, the value of the brand.
What do you mean by that? What is the impact of those shows on what FX is for the next 5 years?
Well,
other than getting a lot of pitches about restaurants.
Yeah, a lot of pitches about restaurants. A tiny little brand that's a part of a subdivision of the Walt Disney Company, a part of Hulu, not even all of Hulu, crushed these giant streaming services with about a tenth of as many at-bats, right? People recognize, they noticed that, right?
The creative community, you mean?
Creative community, no, but consumers notice that too, right? They notice that. How do you create a relationship between a particular flavor of quality? Because I'm not saying that FX does everything or should do everything. There's a lot of things that others do way better than we do. But when you talk about premium adult scripted comedies and dramas, a particular flavor that has a kind of boldness and a kind of humanism and a kind of unvarnished creator forward voice to it, you can't, you find it through the algorithm. Okay, fine. Richard Gadd is that also, and he's a part of Netflix, but where do you find it reliably? Where do you find a bucket of it?
You're trying to answer the consumer question, where are the good shows?
Yeah.
And that everybody's trying to answer that question. And you're saying that you're doing it on a level that is way outperforming your coverage.
Yes. If good is my definition of good, which a lot of people's definition of good is not my definition of good. So there's nothing wrong with these giant streaming services also making unscripted reality programs and more broadcast style fare, because different people have different tastes. But now we're going back to HBO. What did HBO do? It uncovered an appetite for a particular kind of programming that people were willing to seek, pay for. It made a lot of money making really, really good television, scripted television. And we lost, Matt, the ability to have that direct linear relationship, because all of HBO's profit is now just on a spreadsheet somewhere inside Warner Brothers. It's not in an HBO P&L bucket, and FX's profit is not in an FX P&L budget. But I still genuinely believe that Hulu and the Walt Disney Company are better, and they will be more successful with FX than without. Part of it is because I don't need $8 billion. I don't have to throw money at a problem. I don't have to back up a dump truck. I can put time, energy, courage, resources, humility, and we need some money, but we don't need nearly as much money as these competitors do. And all I can say is it won't be the same story next year. It'll be a different story next year. We're not going to win 36 Emmys next year.
You might.
You never know.
I don't think so, but we will again because we did it. And we did it with so little resources and money. You want to talk about capital efficiency. You want to talk about a bargain. The amount of money and people, like we're 210 people. Okay. We're competing against Amazon, Apple, Netflix. We are 210 people inside the FX Networks group. And so that just speaks to the power of individuals, humans, groups, right? And I guess I just find the giant financial and algorithmic machine that we are living in and that we're becoming. I want humans to be better at that machine than something, right? They can beat us at it beats us at chess. It beats us at Go. It's now starting to make animated stuff. Like, all I want to do is just prove that we still have something. And when I say we, of course, I mean very specifically the writers and producers and actors and directors and crews and humans that actually make these shows, that we have something to offer in this system.
Throw ChatGPT into that as well.
I want to zoom out a lot from that question because you've talked about, you've expressed your feelings about Silicon Valley and tech companies and the change on culture. Do you feel that television now is as culturally relevant as it was when you started?
No, because of the delivery mechanism has changed. And when the iPhone came along, and again, I'm not talking about specifically the Apple iPhone. I'm talking about the form factor of a computer and a screen in your hand. I really just didn't realize that it was going to become the fireplace, the gathering spot, the fire pit, right? Because at that time, the TV and the movie theater were the gathering places. And probably a lot of you in this room are too young to remember this, but like social currency was, did you watch X this week? Did you go last weekend to see that movie? That you went on dates, you talked to dates, you talked to friends, your family, you watched stuff with your family, you watched stuff with your friends. Well, the internet took that social currency away from television, because if you think about what do people actually talk about now, because we disaggregated the consumption of television. And I don't mean to say that when Stranger Things comes on or Baby Reindeer, it cannot hold the cultural center for a period of time. It can.
Taylor Swift tour or
but it doesn't nearly. TV and film were the cultural and music were the cultural center in a way.
Craig says this all the time to me, how people used to quote movie lines back and forth to each other and TV lines. Now they quote memes.
That's right. That's right. And I think we've really lost something. Again, I'm an old man in this room. I'm 62 years old. So there's going to be a certain amount of get off my lawn that's going to come out of a guy my age. But
Lucas is also secretly 62 years old.
But I would say that, the thing that's amazing about television and film is they're third person, he, she, them, they. They're not I, me, right? The internet is a first person medium. And so we gathered together to watch stories about other people. We had professional writers and professional actors portraying characters that gave us experiences into other people's lives and stories about empathy and stories about politics and meaning. And we had a common culture, right? In a way that we've lost it, right? When YouTube is far and away the largest individual network in America, and its source of input is hundreds of millions of individual people, and it pays nothing but a rev share, and basically all it does is the algorithm just sucks it up and then feeds to people what they want. You've lost the notion of a human person or a group of writers in a room really slaving over the question of what story will be meaningful and entertaining and surprising to people. Now we're going to make it. Now we're going to put it out there. It's going to be on NBC at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, and tens of millions of people are going to come watch it. So that's never coming back. I'm not suggesting we should throw out our phones and go back to the television, but I would say that I miss a world in which television is more of a cultural, and film are more of a cultural center. When I was sitting at the Emmys, and it was a pretty good night, and I was really honestly thinking that having gone to that broadcast for 20 years and having been an NBC executive even 25 years and gone, I don't think our current politics could have existed in a world where television was the cultural center of America. I think it can only exist in a world where internet, UGC, social media are the center. So I think it's fundamentally changed. It's decentered professional storytelling, which I doubt will ever come back. To be honest, I have 3 sons who are in their 20s, and they're cinephiles. They know a lot about movies, but if you ask what do, they don't watch television, right? I mean, they will. They'll hear about something, they'll go watch a movie, but what do they really do with their time? They really spend their time on their phones.
All right, we're almost done here, but I'll ask one last question, then Lucas can do it. Is there a particular person that you haven't worked with that you really would like to?
It's the person none of us has ever heard of. It's the next Rob McElhenney. It's the next.
How do you find that person?
Donald Glover. It's the next Pamela Adlon. It's the next Chris Storer. How do I find them? I don't know. Every once in a while, when you do what I do for a living, you go in on an ordinary day and you either read a script or you sometimes see a pilot that just blows you back in your chair and you're like, where the hell did this come from? And sometimes it's not perfect. It's a faint radio signal the person's tuning into, but all I can say is that if you're open to it, and I think that, like, I had a degree in anthropology, and the hunters get all the glory, right? And the gatherers are ones that feed the tribe. Right? They go out and they gather. They look at what's there, what's in the environment, they find it, and then somebody comes along with a spear, kills a water buffalo, and they take all the credit. The calories come from gathering, and that's what we do. Like, we're open. And I don't know why that works, Matt, except to say that for 20 years now, 20 years, like, things have been coming in out of nowhere. Like, I don't know, like let me just say this, after we made Louie, we're not dumb. We're like, there's this new form of scripted half-hour comedy, dramedy television that's auteur driven, and it's only men have been doing it. Wouldn't it be interesting if you had a woman do that, or had a person of color, or, whatever. And we say, okay, well, we're going to look for that. 4 years. We looked for 4 years. And we heard the pitch for Atlanta and Better Things on the same day. Wow. Both pitches on the same day, made both pilots the same time, picked them both up at the same time. Now, why was there a 4-year span between the moment in time it occurred to us that was a good idea and 2, not 1, but 2 projects came through the door? I have no clue, except to say it's weird that way. That's how it works. Passes. Yeah.
Mine's way less interesting. What's your YouTube diet?
Nothing.
Nothing. You don't watch it at all.
I'll watch I'll watch if I'm gathered to go to YouTube through some other source, I'll use YouTube, but I don't use its algorithm. I don't like that. I want to stumble upon. I don't want the world served to me. I want to go out and look for it. I want to have the experience of walking through London or Paris or New York and not knowing where I'm going, and running into a shop or a bookstore or a restaurant or a clothing store or a person that I didn't expect to. And I think it's a tragedy that so much of that experience is being taken out of the world by this notion of, okay, well, what you like is you like that kind of coffee, that kind of books, that kind of clothes. So we're just going to rearrange this entire city and we're going to take everything that's not that away from London. It's all gone. You'll never be surprised. You'll get only what you want all the time. That is a dismal idea about how human beings should live their lives. Shame on people who devised it and who feed it to our children. Seriously.
All right. Well, on that note, we want to thank John Landgraf for being our guest. Again, I want to thank Our venue here, NeueHouse. I want to thank producer Craig Horlbeck, our editor Jessie Lopez, Bill Simmons, everyone at The Ringer, and our sponsor, the Wild Robot from DreamWorks Pictures. Thanks everybody for coming.